just going to start the recording there, and then I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Sounds good.
Alright, let's just skip forwards. And then this is on PS4/5, right?
PS5, yeah.
Alright. Alright, so just, how this will mainly work is, I'll mention things and kind of put a pin in them if I like as I'm seeing them at the beginning here, and then if we see them start to repeat or keep coming up, then we'll kind of go more in depth on them. So just like right off the bat, just mentioning it real quick, this first bubble, we kind of we use the bubble and then we like immediately back up with it, like, which basically means we only get 5 energy out of it. We don't really get much accomplished with it. We're basically, if we were to stay aggressive, we were like pushed up here, Reaper might shoot at us more. We might get some people from the bottom to shoot at us. So basically, we just kind of back up prematurely, which doesn't really do very much for us.
Mm-hmm.
And second bubble was good though. Okay, I like the rotation. Alright. Bubbles have actually been looking really solid so far.
That was a miscommunication.
Sure, were you trying to push down main and he wasn't coming with you, or what?
Yeah, I think it was a let's push main, and then I turned around and saw him. He'd gone up the stairs. I was like, oh shit! Like we've kind of like detached a little bit. But
I think we had a hog in the backline or something, and we both called at the same time, different things.
All right, so here, I'm noticing a bunch of right clicks within our left click range. So just typically how that's going to work is whenever you're within left click range, we're going to be left clicking, and then we're going to right click if we're outside of left click range, just because left click is going to be more consistent with easier damage, whereas there we just kind of threw 3 different right clicks in when we were probably within the range of our left click still. So just want to keep beating them down. Right click if we're too far away for it, and then that way we're doing more consistent damage. So we might talk about one. We'll go to the training range to talk about it later, but we might talk about one other way that you can use your right click. But that's just general rules. That's how we're gonna want to use them both. Were you gonna say something?
Is that the right click punch?
Oh, sorry, that's my bad. I'm using PC terms there.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I understand. I know what left click and right click is for right trigger and left trigger. Yeah, but yeah, I assume you mean the right
click punch just when you're next people. Yep, just to burst people down.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's just the other situation where you would be using right click. But so far we're just using it a lot when we're close to people, which just isn't typically what we're going to want to be doing. Right?
Understood.
Alright, so here it seems as though we're, push forwards, people on our right are dying. And then we have a bunch of people like super far back. So let's rewatch that a little bit. Let's just go like kind of from a back perspective. First off, we end up losing a person back here, so we're down 1, right? Then we have Ash, who's still walking back from spawn, so currently we're down technically 2, yet we still are pushing forwards really far, getting aggressive, and then we lose a Junket and a Reinhardt up here, and then we're just really far pushed forwards, and then that means that it's taking us longer to back up. So just kind of there we needed to identify we probably shouldn't have been that far forwards when we're down that many people. Now I guess we'll just we have 2 hours here, and this is probably something that will come up at some point for one of you. So why don't we just talk about how to tell whether or not you won or lost the fight, because that kind of goes into that there of just identifying that faster. When you are basically just knowing whether or not you won or lost the fight comes down to mainly to watching kill feed, right at the top right corner of your screen. When you are up 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage. When you have an advantage, you can look to play a little bit more aggressive because they have less people to shoot at you and to contest you, right? When you are up 2 to 3 people, that is a one fight. At that point, you basically no longer want to use ultimates, right? And because that'd just be overkill. And then also you want to look to get super aggressive and go and kill them and finish them off, right? Now this also goes the exact opposite way. When you are down 1 to 2 people, you're at a disadvantage, so you might want to play a little bit more passive. Now you didn't lose the fight yet, you just are losing the fight, right? Now when you are down 2 to 3 people, that is a lost fight, right? That's where you want to get out, no ults, because I'd just be wasting it, and you want to look to if possible, get out, right, if you can, and then if not, then you want to let them kill you. Here, we just were down 2 people to start off, and we were kind of pushing in aggressively, which meant that we were in so far that by the time our other teammates had died, we were probably not going to be able to get out here, right?
Yeah, so I think from me, I think if
Mm.
from memory, I saw the two people on the kill feed,
Mm.
and that's when I said, okay, fight's over, turn around and try and get out. But I think at this point I did just turn around because I was like, okay, I'm on 84 health. There's 5 people looking at me. I'm just gonna die
Yeah.
quickly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of that slow reaction to the two
Mm.
people initially who died.
Okay.
Alright, so here we have a Grav, probably going to be looking for that. Okay, 2 bubbles, just, real quick, just mentioning them, walking them through. First bubble here that we have 1 single D.Va who's looking at us and shooting at us. And on top of that, D.Va is a pretty close range character. She doesn't
Yeah.
do very much damage from that far away, so this is not gonna result in a whole lot of shield, right? The same way that like you're not going to, shoot shield bubble against a Reaper from this range, right? Just because Reapers, I mean, I guess new buffed Reaper, right, or new changed Reaper maybe, but you're not gonna bubble against the Reaper from that range just because it's not gonna do very much damage, right? Which means that as a result, you're not going to get any energy from that, right? Reinhardt, we bubble when we see that there's no one particularly looking at him. So
Yeah.
just in general, when it comes to bubble usage, we use bubbles when we know damage is incoming. So like, for example, Roadhog lands a hook on a Junkrat. Okay, we bubble the Junkrat. He stays alive and we get energy out of it, right? Most tanking bubbles are going to give you energy, right? That's why we want to look for tanking bubbles, preferably. So Roadhog lands a hook, Reinhardt lands a charge, we bubble, we save their life, we get energy, right? Pretty much any single ultimate in the game, someone gets ulted, you bubble their teammates, they stay alive, you get energy out of it. So, we want to make sure we're using our bubbles when people are taking damage, not when they're not taking damage, and then hopefully that means now that this bubble, these bubbles get value, whereas here we get out of 2 bubbles, get 0 energy out of it, and no real tanking.
Yeah, not my best bubbles. I like that.
So now that's a little bit better, though we do back up very early, so it's kind of the same thing on the Reaper. Make sure when we're bubbling, we're not backing off too early, because once we back up past the shield or around the corner, how the heck are they supposed to shoot at us, right? So, if we were staying up here still, they could still be shooting at our bubble, and we can get the max value out of it, max tanking, max energy, but we back up too early, which just means that now we're not going to be getting any value out of it, right? So just make sure when we have our bubble active, we are getting aggressive with it, and we're pushing forwards, and you're staying in a little bit rather than just backing up, right?
Sure.
So here, hopefully, we're looking for our ultimate.
This fight turned into a bit of a mess.
All right, so there, probably want to make sure we're using our ult faster. So we'll just go into this real quick, and then we'll track it, see how long it takes us to use our ult. But just in general, we want to make sure that we're not holding on to ultimates, right? When we hold on to ults, they just don't do anything, right? This ult has gotten no value yet. It's just gotten 0, nothing. And when we use our ults, then we actually start to get a ton of value, right? So just number 1, don't hold on to ults. Now, number 2 that can help you out with that, right, is make sure that we are looking to use our ults at the very beginning of fights, right? So let's say we had the intention to use our ult that fight, but maybe we just lost the fight too fast, right? We just lost it before we got an opportunity to use our ultimate, right? That happens when you wait too long. So if we, wait too long to use our ultimate, we're not using it at the very beginning of the fight, then they might use use their ults before you, and then you just lose the fight before you get a chance to use it, right? Ults that are used first generally get more value than ults that are used second. So a good comparison is, let's say, or which you can see it basically in that last fight, right? Our team used 0 ultimates, enemy team used 1, 2, 3 ultimates, and then therefore they won the fight, right?
Yeah.
If we have a grab and the enemy team, Zarya has a grab, if they grab first, they're probably going to get kills out of that, get damage into you guys, get a bunch of kills, and, therefore put you guys at a disadvantage, like we just talked about before with watching kill feed. Then after that point, if we grab the second, grab's probably not going to do as much because now we have less people to shoot into the grab, less people to follow up on it, right? So ults that are used first get more value than ults that are used second most of the time, and it's also going to help us use it and not hold on to it if we're actually, using it at the very beginning of fights. So we just want to make sure we're using it as the fight's starting, not mid-fight, not late fight preferably, right? Unless it's necessary. Okay, I'm noticing that a lot of our right clicks aren't connecting at ranges. Now, our left click tracking has been looking pretty decent, but it's looking like just our right clicks in general kind of are whiffing. So, like, see, first right click, gets eaten, second right click into nothing, third right click into nothing, fourth right click into nothing, right? It's just probably want to make sure we're concentrating on landing those. Now, those are just spam shots, right? So those are fine. No issue with just spamming down a corridor. That's fine. But when we have somebody on our screen that we're just missing, that's a little bit different. Good bubble. Oh, melting diva. Maybe looking for a grab now. Yep. Okay. I like that one. We're getting diva out of mech before we went for our ultimate.
That was what I was concerned about with the first fight around the corner in second phase. Was that I'm always conscious of the diva just eating it because it's happened a few times.
Yeah. So in that case, we probably don't want to just not ult because there's a diva. Instead, there's a lot of different ways that we can look to get around the diva, right? There's probably dozen or so different ways, right? So, first off, getting diva out of mech is one of them. Waiting till your teammates get her out of mech. Waiting till she's dead, waiting till she's just too far away. Like, let's say we have a grab opportunity here and diva's all the way over here, or even just like, she has a 10-meter range on her EAT, even if she's just 10 meters away, right? That means that she isn't going to be able to do anything against it, right? Then on top of that, you have, if diva's not looking at you, like if diva's like looking in the complete opposite direction, you might be able to get the grab off. Like if she's, for example, distracted on like someone who's flanking behind her, then you might be able to just grab on, right next to her even, right? You can grab, make sure you're not just lobbing the grab in, so that this is actually like a really, really big one for when you're up against like divas and sigmas. We kind of don't throw them far. Like this one was kind of lobbed a little bit. Instead, what we would do is we would make sure it has a very short radius, or not radius, travel time. So like, for example, we'd grab up against the wall or the cart or the floor, right? So that just there's a less travel time on it, and then therefore it's a lot harder for the diva to react to it. We can, what are some other ones, right? We can do a sneaky grab, and we can, do it when she's not paying attention. We can do it from, you can grab a corner that, she wouldn't be able to actually get. So let's say diva's on the other side of the corner, and we just grab right here and then get them all in on top of that. She just wouldn't be able to see you or eat it, right? Bunch of different options. We just want to make sure we're just trying to get around her and not let her eat it, but actually still using our graph, right? So there's a lot of different options we can go for. And we can also, on top of that, diva, we can also just go in between her defense matrix, bursts, because she does have a time limit on that now. So as soon as it goes down, we can look to toss our grab in because there's a delay, right? So just tons of options. Want to make sure we're taking it, not just holding on to it, right?
Sure.
Good grab. Now the first thing we kind of look at there, we're shooting a lot at the hog. Now I think we were intentionally trying to go for some other people, but it just seemed like we were kind of stuck on the hog there. So like here we look at the Torbjorn, but then we kind of drift over to the hog, and then we're on the the diva, baby diva, and then we drift over to the hog again. So probably want to make sure we're not shooting at the hog. That gets into target priority, which we'll just briefly touch on. Is just don't shoot at tanks for the most part. It's just not what we want to be focusing, but we'll get more in depth on that if we need to. Okay, so bubbles have been looking like slightly inconsistent. It's not looking the best, it's not looking the worst. Like sometimes we're at 100 energy, sometimes we're lower. I think we have good I like that we're not holding on to it, that we have good, like, kind of a good pacing going with it. We're using it frequently. Make sure that when we are high energy, so like above like his 80-ish, maybe 70-ish, right? When you're at a high energy, you no longer really need to focus on being high energy because you know you're if you're sitting at 90, if you get a go for an energy bubble, you're only going up 10 energy, right? Or you go for an energy bubble, you're only going up 20 energy, right? It's not a lot, and that difference between 80 and 100 isn't gonna be a very insane big difference. So basically, once you're up at that high energy range, most of our bubbles are now going to be wanting to be used for tanking purposes, right? We want to make
Yeah.
sure we're using it in instances where we actually need them to keep someone from dying, right? Or to take damage from somebody. So here, just like for example, that bubble was just an energy bubble, right? We weren't in danger of dying. We probably didn't need it to, and for any particular reason when we could just stand behind a Reinhardt, right, and do the same beam from behind him, right? So that bubble didn't really serve any value besides just getting us energy when it wasn't needed, right? And then same thing on the Reinhardt. Reinhardt is a big that shield that can block the bomb. We bubble him when we're at 100 energy. So what's that going to do for us, right? Didn't do anything for us. So we just want to make sure when we're at a high energy that we're looking for pure tanking bubbles, not energy bubbles.
Understood.
All right. Um,
I was going to say fair play to Dread because I usually miss the bombs with my shield.
Yeah, that's force of habit.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm noticing like it's just a slight too much of a preference towards the right click. I like to see more left clicking, especially like when we're in distance for it. But then also sometimes just like, for example, that last fight, it seemed like maybe we were putting
Too
ourselves
many. Yeah.
basically where we're putting ourselves outside of the distance. Like here, we are too far away from it, but do we need to be too far away from it when we could just put ourselves like up a little bit closer? Like if we just put ourselves like closer to here, now we can just left click the Reaper, right? And this puts us on the corner. We have cover that we can use. We have Reinhardt who's in front of us, so we probably don't need to be outside of range to like here when we could just be closer forwards. But instead, we're kind of almost purposefully putting ourselves at this right click range when we probably want to be preferring that left click range because that's the range in which Zarya prefers. So I want to make sure we're putting ourselves slightly closer. Here, we're just going for right clicks when people are within range. No, I think we are going to talk about target priority because it's showing up a little bit more. So we'll talk about that real quick. So target priority, what should we be shooting at? Basically, not tanks, right? Tanks have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have tanking abilities, they have shields, they have armor. They're real hard to kill, right? That's kind of what a tank is. Now, alternatively, DPS and sports also output more statistical value, right? The tanks are a very important role. Obviously, both of you guys played tank, and you can carry on them, and they do a lot, but their job, their role, is to create space for the other roles, whereas DPS do the damage and supports do the healing, and therefore they're the ones who output the statistics. So when it comes to you having having the opportunity, having equal opportunity, for example, right here, right, you have an equal opportunity to shoot at the Diva or the Mercy, right? You can shoot at whichever one you wanted here, right? You can shoot at either one, equal opportunity here, right? We choose to shoot at the Diva when we probably should shoot at the Mercy, right? Mercy's just going to die so much easier. She's going to be more valuable to kill than the Diva is, right? Yeah, we shoot at the Diva instead, right? When we probably should just be going for her, right? And then we've seen that in the past where we've been shooting at Roadhog a ton when there's been people next to him. So when we have equal opportunity, shoot at the things that you want to shoot at, and then also just we want to actively seek out the other characters. And then finally, that's not to say that we never shoot at tanks, right? You do shoot at tanks, in certain situations, like when they are low, like in this situation, Diva's 1 HP, go ahead and shoot the Diva. When they're out of position, if Roadhog's super overextended, shoot at the Roadhog. If they're the only thing to shoot at, so if they're really, if they're for example, sometimes let's say like there's a Reinhardt on the front line, sometimes you're not gonna be able to get past the Reinhardt. So that in that case, you might have to just shoot at his shield and shoot at him. Like in particular, like you as a Reinhardt, right? That's like going to helium here. a lot of the times that one's going to apply to Reinhardt because he can't get to their backline super easily. Like, how is Reinhardt supposed to get to anything but the main tank, right? So a lot of times Reinhardt's going to be focusing a lot more on the tanks than other characters could, just because he can't get to them. Whereas Zarya can get to them a lot easier because she has more range and she has more flexibility because she doesn't have to sit main with Reinhardt as much. And then that means that we probably want to just be focusing the other characters, right? Now here, that's good. We focus on the Reaper. So we swap targets to the Diva. Overkill, paying attention to how, whether or not we've won or lost the fight there. So here we are currently at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But there's a couple other factors here, right? So this is where you get into oh, sorry, it's a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, we have 5. Never mind, I'm done. So a couple other factors here, right? They kind of come into play here. This is usually why 2 is the middleman, right? This is why you say 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3. 2 is the middleman. For this reason is that there's a bunch of other things that go into whether or not you've won or lost a fight. So which team has more ults? Which team is using more ults? Answer here, us. We're using a lot of ults. We just used Beat. We just used Bob. I think Bob is active. Where's Bob at? Did she just throw up Bob?
I think she's just used it.
Oh, okay.
It was right in the
right
middle.
in the middle.
Yeah, there it is. It's right in the middle there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. I thought he was going to show up on the spectator overlay, but he didn't. So we just used Bob, we just used Beat, we just used Falc, and we just used Grab. So we just used 4 ultimates, right? But let's say before we use Grab. We're going about this fight as right before we used our Graviton, right? So let's go back a hair too, just because. Let's see, like it was like right as Diva got demeched here. Okay, so like right here. So at the moment, right, we're looking at all the other things that feed into this. Currently, we are pretty even character-wise, right? Usually, just as an easy way to count her, I count Baby Diva as half of a character, right? It's just a very easy way to count her real quick. Is just right now they have 1, 2, 3, 4.5, right? We have 5 characters. We are currently pretty even on characters, but we have a lot of things that are feeding into this being pretty one. First off, we just used 3 ultimates. They are not using any ults currently. Massive advantage, right? Secondly, we have close spawns here. We are going to be getting our players faster, right? Then you also have other things like other things that can feed into whether or not you've won or lost. Which team has better positioning? Which team has more health? Right now, our Reinhardt's pretty low, so that's maybe a little bit concerning. But also the Diva's pretty low too, so that kind of evens really out a lot here. You have which team has more abilities? And I think that covered most of the ones. I forget which ones I talked about already, but all those different things that feed into whether or not you've won or lost, and the fact that we've used a ton of ults here, we're probably just gonna pretty solidly win this fight, I would imagine, right? It just goes pretty fast. Grav probably wasn't needed there. I would probably say just because that was a pretty one fight, right? They did get a couple picks, but we have 4 people, right? It's 4v, like, 1 person left. So we pretty solidly won that fight, and I don't think that outcome would have changed if we did not use Grab. And then the way that we can tell if we needed to use Grab was by being aware of our environment, by paying attention to what's happening around us, right? And then that way we can have Grab for our next fight. Probably go chase that kill down. He's like 1 HP per, or I guess he was still in the high ground. I thought he dropped from the high ground. But I mean, it's like a go over there, try to kill him. Yeah, good spam. I like this. A little bit outside of our left click range. Keep in mind it's like first off, you have it's 15 meters, right? Is the range of it, and then secondly, you can tell whether or not you're within range of it just based off of if you're actually hitting them. You'll hear when you're hitting them. You'll see a hit marker on your right next to your crosshair when you're actually hitting them. Here, we're just outside of the range on everyone, which means that the beam is right there, right? So we just want to make sure we're a little bit closer before we're going for beam and just getting used to that range. There we could have bubbled for the Ashe, right? If we're paying attention, make sure we're going for those. those protection bubbles, and then it's usually a good idea to keep track of the things that you might need to bubble for. So like real quick, like we can go through their team composition and say, okay, we need to bubble for all these things. So Reaper ults, we need bubble for that. Torbjorn ults, we need bubble for that. Diva ults, we need to look around and see who needs bubble for that. Roadhog ults, you need to see who needs bubble for that, right? Roadhog lands a hook, we need to see who do we need to bubble for that, right? So we just right off the bat, that's like 5 different things that we can specifically think in our heads. Those are the things that we need to use bubble for, right? So
Yeah.
therefore we can be prepared for when those things happen. So when Roadhog lands a hook, we can be prepared for it to happen, and then therefore get the bubble in, and then maybe keep Ash alive longer. And then if she has Coach Gun, she can Coach Gun back up to the high ground, and then boom, she's safe.
I did swing over for the bubble for that one. It's just because I was looking at Diva and I saw it come down. But the time it took, if you look at it again, the time it took for it to get pulled down, I swung over for it and missed it. But yeah, you're right. If they see that the fact that the Ash on high ground
and kind of watch it for it
as well. Yeah.
All right. Alright, the other thing I would say is probably when you see that you're losing the fight. So at the moment when we're like, 4 people versus 6 people, they're using ults, like they have a Valk go in and we don't have any additional advantages. Like this is a situation, right, where we are probably losing this fight, right? This is probably a lost fight. The only way this would be winnable is if we had additional advantages, right? So if we have 4 people versus 6 people, right, we have 2 people alive and we have if we have like more health or more ults or like any of those things we talked about before, then this could be a winnable fight. But because we don't have anything, that means this fight's almost pretty much lost at this point. So probably the play to be for Zarya would be to just back up towards the choke here. This way we can, if we need to, start to get out. It's really important on Zarya that we try to get out. That way we can keep our energy. So even more than other characters, we want to try to survive on Zarya, so that we can keep our energy and then therefore not have to come back into the next fight at like 0, right?
Sure.
Right there, just backing up faster, probably the only thing. All right.
Would have helped if I had grab in that face as well.
Yep, true, very true. Backing up a little bit early off of it.
Yeah.
Besides that, good bubble on the Reinhardt. I think your projected bubbles on your Reinhardt have been pretty well timed. Though the only thing is just using our projected bubbles for other characters who need them for tanking purposes. All right. There we reacted slightly slowly to where the bomb was coming from. We kind of like backed up into it. So we see the bomb on our left, we see the Diva, we see the exclamation point to it, and we we track it, and we're kind of still walking backwards towards it. So just again, awareness kind of feeds into that one of just recognizing where is it coming from, where's the Diva, where's the bomb at, and knowing that information keeps us alive, right? There's kind of 4 main things that can feed into deaths, and obviously deaths are pretty bad, right? We don't want to be dying because then we lose our energy, we're out of the fight, we can't do anything, and we're putting our team at a disadvantage. 4 main things that go into that are misuse of abilities, are being too aggressive, and then the other 2 would be bad positioning and a lack of awareness. This death is a lack of awareness where we just aren't paying attention to where the bomb is, and then therefore we die. Right, is the big thing there, and then if we stay alive longer, then hopefully we can have an impact on the fight. I think we're trying to focus her down for a grab maybe there? Or I guess,
I saw the Discord.
Oh, also true. Okay. Let's rewatch this slightly. First off, he kind of lobbed that in a little bit like right in front of a Diva, so that's pretty dangerous. Another thing to pay attention to is that I don't even know if that grab is necessary. Being that it's, really a fight's not happening now. I think that's an alright time to Grav, but like at the same time, Grav is a pretty powerful, important ultimate that can win you an entire fight. And it might not be necessary when the fight's not really started, when they only, right now it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 versus a 1, 2, 3, almost 4, right? It's like we have a pretty significant advantage, so Grav might not even be necessary here. Secondly, we're kind of out in the open here, and then therefore we die. Positioning, when we talk about positioning real quick, so we're at 6 minutes and 36 seconds. Go to practice range. Alright, we're on Zarya.
Together we are strong.
Alright, so basically this is positioning, right? And how positioning works. Where should we be standing? When we are standing right here, it takes us roughly, like, there's 6 people shooting at us, right? They're a bunch of enemy players all shooting at us, and we're taking a bunch of damage. It takes us from here roughly 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Now, from here, we cannot get shot at, right? You cannot shoot through solid objects, so we're good. But in that time it took us to walk here, we died, right? Just because we're out in the open, right? Whereas here, we can, do this, and in half of a second, they can no longer see us, right? So therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? When they can't shoot at us, right? Or when they can shoot at us is when it's bad, right? There's a bunch of different types of positioning. We can use slopes, we can use pillars, right, in between our right clicks, or when we're reloading, or when we're low HP and being shot at. When, for example, bombs coming in, right? We cannot get bombed if we can just do this really easily, right? Same thing with like high noon, right? A good kind of way to walk yourself through positioning and kind of tool to use to know, am I in a good spot, is if every single player on the enemy team was a high nooning McCree, would I be able to survive, right? Or if, even if there's one high nooning McCree like on their team, right? Would I be able to survive it, right, from where I'm standing? We use corners like this. We can use objects like this, right? And it's everywhere. Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, right? All cover usage. High ground, this entire thing acts as natural cover, right? They can see us, can't see us, can't see us, right? So that just makes high ground pretty fantastic positioning for you to have. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it with positioning-wise. There, when we just died, we talked about positioning being one of the things that can lead to deaths. And we died basically because we were standing on the open, right? And then standing on the open is what got us killed, and then therefore we lose a bunch of value. We seem to be dying, not, I'd probably say not a ton, but not in the best scenarios. We're often dying earlier in fights, and we're dying when we probably don't need to be dying, and then therefore we're just losing a lot of value, so we want to focus on staying alive and actually surviving to do things, right? I'm pretty sure we're in Route 66 here, right?
Traveling to Route 66.
Oh, no, we're
no,
not.
sorry,
No,
it's
Dorado.
Dorado.
Yep, I gotta mix those two up. Hopefully this is it.
Traveling to Dorado. Ready for battle.
Right, yep, this is it. So I don't know where we were at. We were like somewhere over here. Yep, right here. Or no, actually, ahead of this. So like right here. So
I think I got tunnel vision with the
Grav.
Diva, and then with the Grav, and then I remember being really annoyed at this this kill, to be honest, this death, because I'm on 2 HP, and then there's a taunt that just brains me from the right,
Yeah.
and I'm like, why am I stood right in the middle? Like, I think it's one of those things. I think I've been in Diamond before, and I've been in Plat for like most of my Overwatch life, and when I'm in like Plat, I can see the wrong decisions that I'm making. So when I saw this, I was like, I know I know I've left cover, like I've made a bad decision. When I'm in Diamond, things happen so quickly that I can't make the right decision. I end up going into like autopilot, if you know what I mean. Like my brain just doesn't function fast enough. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. So how you look to get basically your brain to function at a faster pacing is getting good habits down. So when you start to, for example, get a good habit, let's just use the example of positioning. You get a good habits of positioning down to where it basically just comes naturally. Once it starts to come naturally, and you because it's just a habit to position yourself well, you don't need to put as very much brain power into your positioning because it just kind of happens, right? So like as an example, I play at, I'm a high level player, but I play at diamond level ish to play with pals, right, and play with friends when I play. When I'm at that rank, I don't really try, just cause I kind of like autopilot. I talk and chill, and I don't really put as much effort into it, just because I've built into myself a kind of the habits of positioning as the example so well that like I just position well without thinking about how I'm doing it, right? So when you get better and you with your positioning, you're going to not need to think about it as much, and then therefore you're gonna be able to function at a at a higher rank better, right? So real quick, why don't we talk about just how we look to apply things, because that's pretty useful for both of you, right? Of the application process of just applying anything we're trying to talk about. So just again using, I guess, the positioning just analogy, or I guess the positioning as the thing we're talking about at the moment, right? And let's say we're trying to get better at positioning, right? So how we focus on positioning, or how we improve on positioning, is the same way we improve on anything we're trying to improve on, and that is focus on it while we're playing, right? We're not going to want to autopilot. We're not going to want to just play to win, because contrary to popular belief, when you play to win, you're actually not going to be winning in the long. You're not going to be winning more in the long run. You're just going to be stagnating. Whereas if you focus on improvement, you're actually going to be winning more in the long run, right? On top of that, we just want to make sure we are focusing on the thing we're trying to improve on. So what that looks like when we're playing, when we're looking to work on our positioning, is our brain's gonna go positioning, 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 positioning. I can't say that really fast. Positioning, positioning. I usually say awareness. Positioning, 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 positioning. Right. Where we're constantly trying to focus and think about it and remind ourselves and put attention and effort and energy into it. And when we do that, it's going to start to look a little bit better, right? Our positioning, when we're thinking about our positioning going to start to look like it's improving a little bit. And when we do that for a long period of time, that's going to form as a habit. And then once it forms as a habit, we no longer need to focus on it as much, and we can move on to a different area, right? We can move on to the next thing. So, that's just the example we're working with. Look to focus while you're playing. Don't just autopilot. And then that's going to allow you to improve rather than stagnate, because the easiest way to just stagnate and stay at plat for 3 years is to just not really focus on improving, right? It's to
Sure.
focus on winning, or to focus, or just to autopilot, like you said, right?
So just before we move on from this bit, sorry,
Yep.
sorry, Greg, did you want to say something?
I was going to say we definitely fall into that trap. Like we have a 2-hour session, and all we want to do is win. You get sidetracked and not focusing on improving.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You win a game and then you go, oh, I won a game, therefore I played perfectly. Like that's not true, is it?
Yep.
So just using this bit as an example, if you just like roll it back like
Yep.
10 seconds, the way the position is. So I chased out that diva. So in terms of positioning, if you just like stop it now, that diva like flies across the screen to the left back to spawn. Like in that position, do you just back up to the nearest cover, or do you push up further? Like which cover do you take?
There's situations where you can leave positioning fine, right? There's certain instances where leaving cover is fine, particularly when you have massive advantages. So when we were talking about like when you have won a fight, like that's an instance where like you aren't going to get punished nearly as easily, and therefore you can push forwards. But if you're walking forwards one person versus 4 people, that's probably not a situation where you want to be running into them, because then you're just going to die. Here we could probably be shooting diva just fine from like this corner, right? You see how that's within your 15 meters. We're going to be able to shoot diva just the exact same from over here. And then when we grab, we back up a little bit, and then when we grab, we can grab and stand right next to a Reinhardt, and we can stand over on and use this left wall and use our Reinhardt as cover. We can kind of use him to body block us, damage for us, and shield for us, right? Whereas we kind of just plop ourselves straight in the middle, which just means that we take a lot of extra damage. Yeah, Torb will be able to shoot you, but it's not. I think it's not. Yeah, Torb. Okay, Torb lands 2 headshots, right? That's how you got melted. But just standing over here more puts Reinhardt in your line of sight, right? And then it allows you to still, or not right in your line of sight, but blocks the Torbjorn from your line of sight, and then you can still use the cover, right? Instead of just standing right over here, right?
Sure.
So there's, like I said, there's cover everywhere, right? Corner, 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 or pillar, pillar, corner, corner, right? Just all over the place. So we just want to make sure we're looking to utilize them, and then therefore we're gonna be able to stay alive, right? And that all makes sense. Any questions on any of that?
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think a bronze player could tell you that standing in the middle is just a bad
Yeah.
idea. I think it's one of those things where you're chasing down a target and you just go, okay, I can just now go bananas and just like start lasering down people. But yeah, I think it's an autopilot thing. You think you're doing damage, it's a good thing. It's like, but I've completely left cover. Like, yeah, I do need to work on it.
Well, I just making sure one of you weren't gonna start talking there because you both talked at once. so we're good to keep going, right?
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, after this game will be over, we'll do a quick strengths, weaknesses, and then we'll move on over to Helium. A little bit longer of a round here. Alright. Don't know if I think you'd be able to do that if it's close turn.
Yeah, I was trying to take a little bit higher.
Probably want to just be so here, just like as we're walking back, probably just want to be positioning ourselves high ground if we're going there. So high ground's real quick for both of you, just why high ground's great and why we want to look to control it. So high ground, all is natural cover. Lucio can see us, can't see us, sees us, can't see us. Also, characters can't get, like 2/3 of the characters in the game can't get to high ground without using the stairway, right? Like on their team, no one but Lucio and Reaper can just, sorry, rephrase that. Diva, Lucio, Reaper, and then maybe Mercy, right? So Torbjorn can't get there, Reinhardt can't get there, and then the characters that can get there need to use abilities, and then therefore they're out of abilities, right? So that's going to give us additional survivability on high grounds, and then on top of that, high grounds gives us a ton of visibility, right? We can see stuff in here, we can see stuff all over on this side, all over this side, all of the high grounds, whereas if we're on a low ground, we can't see any of the high grounds. We can't see, if we're over here, we can't see anything over there. We're over here, we can't see anything over there, right? We just lose out a ton of visibility. And then finally, one last thing that makes high ground really good, because high ground's not that great for Reinhardt, right? Like, we'll tie this into Helium real quick. High ground's not the best for Reinhardt, right? He doesn't need to be sitting on a high ground because he can't swing from that distance. He can't do things from that distance. But high ground is also good for the enemy team, right? High ground's just as good for the enemy team as it is for your team, and therefore what we can do is we can rip away that advantage for them. So when we take the high ground for our team and take it away from their team, then that's going to be, it's going to take the advantage away from them and give it to ourselves, right? Or even just rip it away from them. Sometimes, like, let's say your entire team did not benefit from high ground, but their team does benefit from high ground and they're on high ground. You would want to run them off high ground and take the high ground away from them, right? So here, for example, when they're all going high ground, we probably want to be up on the high ground ourselves, right? Just both you, Helium and Zarya, right? Both of you guys should probably be already up on the high ground, so that if they go high ground, you're already here. If they go low ground, you can just drop super easily, right? It's just very easy to just drop down very fast. So both of you, make sure that in between fights, you're rotating to the best positioning possible, which a lot of the times is just going to be high grounds if it's an option and it's in the fight. Here, that'd probably be just making sure in between fights we're rotating to the top high ground above us, instead of just going main, right? Because there we probably could have gone high ground super easily instead of going main. Right.
Yeah, I think you can see there's a moment where I try and rocket jump onto the high ground.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can do it, but then
I think
look
it's
around
closer
to the stairs. I'm like, I should have gone to the stairs. No, I can't now.
Looking at it now, the rest of our team is already up there. Like
yeah. And then by the time we're arriving, there's already a lot of picks being flown. We're not participating. Nice bubble. Good both bubbles. Right. So we finally made it up. This is good. Alright, so now we're on high ground, but notice that now none of our teammates are. So I mean, like, this is that's completely fine for that to be happening, but just for Helium, right? Make sure we're doing. You probably should be over here too, just so we can. If they're looking like they want to keep taking high ground, we just want to contest it from them. But besides that, that's good for you to be there, Dread. Good positioning. Right clicks right clicks when they were too close. We're also. Yeah, a lot of right clicks happening like when we're like right next to people, right? The only time we're right clicking when we're next to people, like we talked about at the very beginning, is just when we're bursting down the last bit of their health, right? Because that's gonna allow us to kill them faster. Whereas just right clicking when they're full HP isn't gonna do anything to kill them faster. All right, unfortunate.
I still have you. It is not over yet. 10 seconds remaining.
Yeah, that bubble didn't do anything on your Reinhardt. Just inconsistent. Want to make sure we're using it when people are looking at us.
Barriers on you. Go.
We use bubble there when our Reinhardt's backing up. Make sure you guys are kind of on the same page of like when we're looking to go in, when we're looking to back out. If he's backing out, then your bubble's probably not going to do very much for tanking, right? So we want to make sure we're paying attention to when he's engaging, when he's not. Right click melee to finish him off.
Mhm.
Right. Make sure
Is
we're
there a
looking.
general rule that you would use for right click melee for how much, like for their HP bar above their head, like a quarter or something like that?
It's dependent on your how much energy you have, because you do more
Hmm.
damage when you have more energy and less damage when you don't have any energy. I believe when you, I think when I do it in the training range, it does roughly like a right click melee does roughly like 70-ish. With at 0 energy, it does roughly like 70 damage. So if I were just to put a random guess number on it, though when you're at a higher energy, that's going to be more like half their health, so maybe up to like 100 damage ish. If you're like at a high energy, so just really, it's just when people are down lower, you'll start to get a feel for it when you're going along. But you can go to the training range and try to practice it a little bit, test it
Yeah.
out if you want to. But yeah, it's really when people are lower. So just like basically when you're about to kill them, you're just right click meleeing to finish them off, burst them down. The faster you kill someone, the less time they have to get away, to use shields, to use tanking abilities, to get healed, right? And then, or to just use movement abilities and escape. So the faster you kill something, it's always gonna be better. Here we use grab slightly late in the fight, like we get, it's kind of the make sure we're not holding on to, or we're not using it mid fight or late fight, right? Here we get it right back here. Yeah, we turn around for the Reinhardt, but I'd almost argue that it's probably more important that we get the grab off than chasing the Reinhardt here, because we
Okay.
don't want to hold on to it. So what we can maybe do is, like, we see the Reinhardt go over, we can maybe come up here, toss in a grab, and then turn around and go for the Reinhardt if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Just we want to get the grab off, because when we don't get the grab off, notice here that we get the kill on the Reinhardt, but then they res the Sombra, and then they're gonna get a kill on your Ashe, and then they're gonna get, and then we finally grab, and then now we're down 2 more people than we would have been before when we used it. Okay, so we still use it, so that's good. All right.
Even stronger.
So that's it for the first round.
Ready for battle.
So we'll just real quick go over your strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll move on over to Helium. So first off, ability usage, I probably say is like inconsistent. So that would mean like, sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's really bad. So therefore, I'm probably gonna put that one at like a medium priority for you to work on. So it's kind of in the middle there. And to be honest, I think that's where we're probably gonna put a lot of these things, because it's looking like everything's just kind of like that, where it's like there's a little bit of everything that you're needing to work on. It's nothing like, I don't think there's one particular area that you're like really struggling with, or one particular area that you're really excelling in. It's more so that just everything is kind of needing a little bit of work at it. And when you start to get consistent at stuff, and you focus on them, and you start to go one by one through them and working on them, then that's where you look to improve. Also, I forgot to mention, I'm pretty sure I forgot to mention this when I went over just focusing on things, is just remember, try not to focus on every single thing that we talk about. We've talked about a lot of stuff so far, and we're gonna talk about a lot more stuff. Don't try to go over everything, because that's gonna get overwhelming. Instead, try to focus on kind of one category of things, which I'm gonna go around the categories in a moment here, or 1 to 3 sub categories, right? So 1 to 3 smaller things within a category, right?
Sure.
So moving on, ultimate usage, probably say that's around the medium too. We with our ultimates, we just want to make sure we're not holding on to them. Want to make sure we're using at the beginning of the fights. We want to make sure we're not using them in won or lost fights, right? It's just like, it's not terrible, but it's not great. So there's sometimes we're doing good, sometimes we're doing bad. So that's going in a medium priority as well. Mechanics, I don't think that we have any general tracking problems with our left click, though I probably say one of the, the bigger things to work on is, when to use left click, when to use right click, because that is affecting a little bit of our damage, as well as target priority feeds into that category, and then also just sometimes we're shooting too far, like, when we're using left click when we're too far to use left click, or we're using right click within our left click distance, or we're not going for the right click melee, or we'll the other thing to put in there is like that we're sometimes whiff our right clicks when we toss them in there, right? Where they just don't hit anything in particular. So in general, I would say that's a pretty massive gun you got there. Oh, that's a hammer.
It's
I
half
just
a hammer.
Yeah, it's half a hammer. I honestly did not realize that. I thought it was a skin for a second. So moving on, sorry, because I got distracted there. That's probably going. I listed a bunch of things, but I think it's like a bunch of tinier things. So I think it's still going at like a medium priority. I don't like that. I listed a lot of things there, but it's not. It's still kind of low weight for each of them that kind of adds up. And then coming in, we have positioning and then awareness. Positioning, we haven't had to talk a ton about, so I think honestly that one's probably our first one that's not going to be medium. I think we're going to put positioning at a low to medium priority, as I just think that we haven't talked as much about positioning. We talked about making sure we're not on the open, making sure we're on high grounds, if whenever possible, and rotating between fights, and then that's pretty much it, and it hasn't been a ton, so we're going to put that there for now. And then finally, the last category is going to be awareness. So awareness, make sure paying attention to kill feed, all the things that accompany that, paying attention to, when to people, and when we're using our bubbles. So like, where's our team at, where's the enemy team at in kind of relation to each other, like when and how we're using our bubble usage, kind of awareness feeds into that. When we're aware of who's in danger, who's looking at us, who's shooting at us, then we can bubble better. Then on top of that, let's see, what are some other awareness things? I don't know. And then again, I don't know. Awareness is usually one of the those slower ones to diagnose, so that might go up, but we'll see. Might just stay with us, not seeing very much. And then that one for now, again, kinda. Maybe I'll put it. Let's see. I think. Yeah, I think if really the big main thing in awareness is just the kill feed watching and fight watching, if that's the big main one so far in awareness, then probably like a low to medium. So yeah, it's really hard because like all these are really clumped up in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's that's pretty much it for what we're working with now. We might so far we have been going for 50, like an hour ish. So yeah, we started. Let's see, when did we start the call? Because I just want to pay attention, because we started at 3:09 my time. So we're gonna go to 5:09, which is in an hour. Okay. So Helium, we'll get over to you. We may or may not get back to you, Dread. Not sure. How long we're gonna spend
Yeah,
on
that's
him.
fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Would we like to, because this round's, it looks like it's just gonna be shorter than the last round. Would we like to go over the last round with you, Helium?
I can't remember. What did we do in defensible? No, I think it'd be good to go.
I think the defense was much more difficult than the attack. The attack was we were good. We were very good in attack. So
Okay.
if you're looking for constructive criticism,
I
I go
think
from the
there's
start.
There's the very beginning of our attack. There's some stuff that we both do wrong underneath
All right.
this choke on the bottom left, but we'll come back to that. I think
All
that's
right.
a good point. Paul. We kind of attack was much stronger.
All right, sounds good. So
Cool. I'll just mute yourself then.
sounds good. Oh, and then I guess just while it's on your mind, we'll get back to I'll ask at the end again, but just while it's fresh on your mind, do you have any questions on anything we've talked about with you?
The one for me would be like team fight awareness. So I'm quite good with the kill feed. I'm comfortable with the kill feed. I think so. Do you remember on the second point where I threw that grav in?
Yep.
And there was like 3 ults going on. Like I think I just completely tunneled the fact that those ults were going on. I saw that I looked at the kill feed and I was like, okay, we are mid fight, so I can get my ult in. Because there was like nothing, or it was one each way on the kill feed. But I think how do you start to like? And obviously, there's audio cues for the ultimates and stuff like that. I think it's difficult because I think I visually I just see what's on the screen in front of me. There are there's 3 red fellas and there's 3 blue fellas. Therefore, it's an even team fight. How do you like start to train yourself to understand what's going on in a team fight awareness side? I guess.
The same way that we talked about with the other stuff is focusing on it while we're going along, making sure that we're we're listening, because there's if they're not directly in your field of view, we have our ears open where we can hear our Valk popping, and we can hear the voice lines. We hear her throw Bob in. Bob was actually the Ashe was like right in front of us right there when she threw the Bob in, right? So she was throwing it kind of like towards us so we could see Bob. The beat I think came like right after we threw our grab in, but like even those two alone, we'd be maybe hesitant to throw our grab right once we see those two or hear those two, right? Making sure that we're not just staring straight forwards, but we're we're looking left, looking right. We're not just constantly holding W and just doing a slow pan, but we're looking left, we're looking right. We're doing a 360 once in a while, right? Especially before we're getting aggressive and going to do something. Just we want to basically focus on paying attention to our surroundings, and that's how you start to develop the habit of paying attention to your surroundings is by focusing on it, like as we discussed before, with focusing on other things. So yeah, just paying attention to those things is going to allow you to be more aware of when when we're winning or losing fights, and then therefore is going to allow you to actually know when you're supposed to be using grab or not, right? That kind of answer your question.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think my hour is up, so I'll let Heathen take over.
All right.
Otherwise, also, Jed, feel free to pop in like the comments. I've got no problem with that. As you go.
I do that during the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got bad habits. Here we go.
Okay, at the moment I'd probably be going for some fire strikes. First off, you can go for a fire strike just from here to the door, which I didn't see us go for, and then you can also just fire strike down in there. I'm not, just at the moment, I'm just seeing it, but, we'll just for context, right? Fire strike is like the biggest source of ult charge you can get on Reinhardt because it's just so consistent. You can get so much damage in from it, which like from a range, which is going to mean that you basically want to use it off a cooldown. Like every single time you get it up, you're using your fire strike, which is like every 6 seconds. Whereas there we just don't throw any fire strikes. Yep. We're also flashing our shield a bunch when it's sitting pretty low. So here, after we take a bunch of damage and we're looking to push aggressively, this is, at the moment, we don't need to shield anything here. Shielding here is useless. We're not shielding anything in particular, which just means that this is where we want to be recharging our shield, right? Getting it back up to 100% so that we actually have it when it is useful, right? Yet we kind of push forwards and it takes some more damage, and then we fire strike, and then again, no one needs a shield, no one needs protection, right? It's kind of the same thing, the same thing as when we were talking about our bubble usage. Is like we use bubbles when people are actually shooting at us. We use shield when people are actually shooting at us. There's no reason to currently be using a shield. Yeah, we kind of flash it up, which stops the recharge, right? We want to make sure we're not just randomly flashing our shield because that's just going to stop it from regenerating, right? And then we put it up again, and then now it's just broken. This is where we should probably be rotating to get to the bottom. Rotation comes a little bit late. I probably would say for just both of you, for context, you probably want to rotate right as the kind of the tip of the cart is right at the corner. So this is like, this is a little bit past the point in which you should be rotating, and then we are kind of rotating slightly after that happens. So like when we start rotating is when it's like almost halfway through the choke, right? Whereas we probably want to be rotating slightly faster than that, right? Just because by the time, and then we also delay there as well, right? So by the time we get there, carts, they're already through the choke point, right? Which is the issue, right? The Lucio's passed, Diva's passed, Roadhog's halfway through, right? Which is a big issue because we want to actually use the choke point, right? So just real quickly, what a choke is, right? What this thing is, and you guys have been playing for 2 or 3 years, so I'm gonna assume you know what a choke point is, right? Right, this is a choke right here, this whole area. Basically you think of this as a funnel, right? When they're trying to walk through this, it's pushing them all clumped up into a tiny little ball, and there's no cover, or not a whole lot of cover anywhere, and it's really, really tough because we can stuff a bunch of damage down that corridor. Now, if we just let them walk through for free, well, then that choke just didn't do anything at all, right? That choke got 0 value, so we lose our essentially our positional advantage. Holding that choke gives us positional advantage. When we don't hold it, then we kind of lose that advantage. So we want to make sure we're rotating fast. We're using that choke, and that kind of comes in positioning, right? No, I like that we're getting aggressive.
This was that moment where they split, it's kind of 3 and 3.
Okay. Make sure we're watching our health bar, right? This is part of awareness. Here we just, we take a look at our health bar and we see that we're decently low. Like right now, we're at 185 we shield, which is good. This is where we want to be shielding because we're below half HP. Yet we go for a fire strike when we're at 100. When we're at that low of HP. Don't go for fire strikes when we're this low health because that's just gonna get us melted. And then when we're at 150, we even push forwards and keep trying to run in. So pay attention to your health bar that comes in at awareness and paying attention to our environment. Dread, I don't think you had that. I think you did a decent job paying attention to your health bar, but Helium, we want to make sure we're paying attention to that so that you know when can we get aggressive, when do we have to play passive. That was a situation where we just kind of dropped our shield when we could have just kept it up and then stayed alive.
Sure, yeah. No, that's good.
Alright, so here, let's see, do we have our whole team with us? Right now we are down one person, Lucio, all the way in spawn, so we just have to kind of keep that as a mental tab. Usually a good idea to pay attention to that, maybe to, check, do we have our team with us? Okay, I think we might have to talk about aggression here.
Time to raise my APM. Enemy turret ahead.
Make sure when she has her bubble on you that you're not shielding. You wanted to rotate those, so when she has her bubble on you, that acts as tanking. And what that means is when you drop your shield, that means that you're preserving your shield and it's not taking as much damage while you're also kind of maximizing the bubble usage. This also means that when you have your shield up, the only part in which they can see of the bubble is the tiny little tip of it, right? So let's rewatch that real quick. When she bubbles you, right, and you have your shield up, waiting for it, right here, they can only see that tiny little bit of the tip through the front of your shield, right? Whereas if you drop your shield, right, you can see how it peeks out a tiny little bit. So they can still damage it a little bit, but that's versus the entire hulking bubble of the entire thing, right? So when we drop our shield, that's going to allow the Zarya to actually get energy out of the bubble, whereas here she's probably not going to get as much energy out of it, right? She bubbles us and then gets 18, 19, and then a big bulk at the end. But that was when we dropped our shield, right? When she got the big bulk of energy was when she dropped it, right? Not when and that's going to mean that we want to drop it earlier there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It's flat charged.
That's unfortunate. At this point, we just want to get out.
So there, I think appealed for that to try and get to that Reaper, and I'm wondering whether holding the front line would have been better. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking there. I think the big thing is that they just used 3 ultimates, and then that's kind of what swung that like really hard in their favor. But I think you also might want to just leave Reaper up to somebody else because as a Reinhardt, unless you're close to it, you don't have the mobility to be able to come back and help with the Reaper very fast. And on top of that, as a Reinhardt, it is your job to hold the front line, right? It's your job to protect your team from the front. And if you're leaving the front, who's holding the front line, right? So for example, there, like if you're leaving the front line to go for the Reaper, then their other 5 players can just run through your team, right? So we kind of need to just leave Reaper up to the people behind us and hold the front line and do our job there so that our team can actually, survive it, hopefully, right? Now there, the big thing was just that we, lost all the, they used a bunch of ults and then now we're coming back in the next fight. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Make sure using our charge while walking back from spawn. Right, charge is just gonna be a really easy way to just get back super fast. So rather than coming up right side, you might want to come up left side because it's a straighter pathway, right? And then we can just charge from all the way down here to right, and we get back like twice as fast, right? Which is gonna mean that we're gonna be able to help our team out in the fight that's happening, without just coming back super slowly. And it's not like charge is like a super important cooldown to where you're gonna need it for when the fight's like when you're in the fight. You can go be in the fight without having charge and it, be okay, right? So just use it to get back sooner, right? You're always gonna want to do that unless you're the only person alive going in.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Enemy turrets down.
Okay, here we probably want to be pushing. Let's see. Okay, never mind. We're down. Okay, so I thought we were at a more of an advantage than we were. So taking that back.
Was thinking trying hold this corner.
Yep, that's a good idea. That's probably honestly that's probably a better idea than pushing forwards at the moment there. That's something I wasn't paying attention to the last time if we were talking about it with Tread, but pushing in this instance probably isn't the best idea because it was a 5v5 and we didn't have any advantage. So rather than pushing forwards, you want to hold the corner so that we can have like you just said, like we want to have that positional advantage of holding the cover, and then also having them push into us. Whereas if we push forwards here, that's kind of putting us at a not so great positioning.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We're gonna just for the moment. I'm like looking for an opportunity to talk about this, but I think for the moment I'm just gonna mention that I think we're holding up shield way too much when it's not needed in like wrong situations. So like just there we kept holding it up even after the bomb hit and we were super far back. We just kind of plopped it up for an unnecessary reason. Like we didn't need to have it up.
Yeah.
Here that's
I do struggle with shield management. So
yeah, I think we're gonna have to talk a little bit about that. So here, perfect shatter opportunity, right? We just kind of it's kind of the same thing with Dread. So like right here, we could we let them group up a little bit. We back up, right? At the moment, we could go like for shatter right now and get 3 people, the Reaper and both the tanks. We can also go for it in a moment here, whenever, right? We could go for it now. I think we're about to go for it in a moment, right? Okay, we do. Make sure before we're going for that, we're like peeking further to the left so we can just go like this and get more than 2 people. We kind of like limit our line of sight there when we could just get more than that. Like we just went like this, right? Besides that, probably don't want to charge this. We do charge this. So when you want to charge versus when you don't want to charge into a shatter, when you're right next to a shatter, don't charge into it. Just swing on it, right? You're gonna be able to kill the squishies. Like just basically you can kill squishies before they wake up with just by swinging on top of it, and by you charging, that's actually just gonna displace everyone and boop them all around, which can make it harder to finish off people. Now in this situation, you don't boop her very far, but you do boop her far enough to where she just gets away, right? She's actually doesn't die and she gets the beat. So that you charging there actually gets the diva out, whereas you probably could have just killed both of them, right?
yeah.
Times where you can.
It's actually UK law that Greg charges into every shatter he throws down.
I've got this habit that's already built that I'm trying so hard to get rid of. Every time that shatter goes down, it's just a pin.
Yep. So that's
Sorry, I'll mute again.
Yeah. Yeah, you're fine. So yeah, that's just something we want to focus. Getting rid of habits is the same way we build habits, right? It's just focusing on it while we're playing. But then also,
you said earlier.
Yeah, and then if you need to, I don't know like how easy it is to do this on controller or whatever, but you can remap the charge button if it's like if it's that unbind it. But no, you can like change it around to a different button if you feel like it's that serious of something, so you have to intentionally think about it. So, but besides that, just make sure we're not charging into it. Now, times where charging is necessary, right? Times where you would want to charge is when we're too far away to actually capitalize on it. So let's say we shattered and we're like further like back here. Well, now you're not going to be able to swing on it so you might want to charge to get there fast enough to actually capitalize on it, right? Another time where you can charge is, let's say is basically right before they're about to wake up, right? So like you swing twice into it, and then you see, okay, there's still a tank who's like basically full HP. Well, we can charge them like right at the last second, right before they wake up. That way we can actually finish them off. So like right here, for example, like if Diva, let's say she was like we shattered her, we went in and we swung, and she was still like half HP. At the very end, right before she gets up, we can add in the charge to, to kill her. But we don't want to just charge immediately and boop everyone away, right?
Yeah.
Because that only gets one kill, where we could have gotten 2 kills there. Really good. I think we're gonna talk about shield management definitely in a moment. Well, we'll talk about it like as the next fight happens, because they'll probably come up in the next fight. Oh, watch your health. Again, right? Health dictates, is a big part of it, dictating how aggressive can you be. Here we walk in, we swing, and we're at half HP. We're paying attention. We're half HP. This is around the area where you probably are thinking we probably want to start shielding when you're like half or below, right? When you're like 300. 200-ish, right? We go in on top of the Reaper, we swing once, Reaper hits us once, and then we're dead instantly. We probably just should have been shielding there, get our health up, let someone else take him. Obviously, we just don't want to be dying to the Reaper there, because dying's not good. We just fed him a bunch of ult charge, and now we're going to be coming back. Alright. So here we're going to specifically take a look at our shield management. See how we can look to improve it a little bit better. So just right off the bat, okay, so she gets the hook in. Right off the bat, we're just holding up shield too much. Like we're at 5 minutes. Why don't we just talk about this real quick? Just go to the training range. Reinhardt is a brawl character, right? That's just what Reinhardt is. He likes to swing on top of things, right? He likes to go in and use his hammer, which I think you understand pretty well. But the issue is that at the very beginning of fights, let's say we're trying to push in, right? And we're standing on this corner, and the enemy team's all in there. At the very beginning of fights, we'll just sit here and do this, right? Whereas this probably isn't what we want to do. Instead, what we are going to do is we're going to just sit in the corner. We're just going to, swing if they're close enough, but we're just going to kind of chill here. We're going to wait. We're going to wait around the corner so we don't have to use shield. And then when they get close enough for us to get aggressive, then we're going to push forwards, swing in on top of them. We're going to go in and brawl. We're going to do our thing. Then when we're low, or we, lose our advantage, or we're, we need to back up, then we're going to shield and get out, right? That way we actually have our shield to escape. Now, if we hold up our shield at the very beginning of fight and they just melt it, then if we push in after that, we're not going to have a shield to back up with, and then we just die, right? So things to take a look at when it comes to our shield, right? If like when should we be shielding? There's roughly like 6-ish things that you should be shielding for, right? You shield when you are taking space. So when we're pushing forwards aggressively and we're trying to push in, so like coming from here to there, we would shield hop. Are you familiar with that tech at all?
Yeah, I am. I don't. Sorry, I tend not to. I actually don't use it a lot, even though I know how to do it. I think it's that tunnel vision thing again.
Yeah,
so use hard shield.
We'll talk about that in a moment then. So when we use it when we're pushing forwards, we use it when we're or when leaving space and we're backing up. We're going to use our shield when we are low, or when we have teammates that are low, right? So when we just need to drop shield because we took damage, or because we're like half HP, then we use our shield. We use it, and then we can also use it to block abilities and shields, and then not shields. We use it to block abilities and ultimates, and then finally we can use it to block damage if it's like a ton of damage that's coming in. Other than that, we're not going to want to just hold it up for just random spam damage that's coming in, because that's just basically unnecessary, right? What's the purpose of that? It's really only going to stop us from taking tiny little bits and pieces of damage, while also just soaking up so much damage into our shield, meaning that we won't have it for when we do need it. So make sure to be slightly more selective with it. Make sure that we're using it we're not using it too early in the fight to where we're not going to have it when the fight begins. Make sure we're not just randomly flashing it, so that we're that way we're just letting it recharge, right? Don't just back on the corner and then just flash it randomly, so that we can be recharging. And then finally, shield hopping. Now you say you already know how to shield hop, but let's talk about situations where shield hopping is needed and then why it's so good, right? basically you want to shield hop anytime you're trying to take or leave space very fast, right? Shield hopping is going to allow you to have a faster movement speed while also shielding. If we just hard shield here and just walk forwards, we move pretty slowly. But if we shield hop, we're actually going to be moving much faster while we're pushing in, which is overall going to mean that we are, when you move faster, you take less damage, right? Essentially, when you're traveling that space, when you're closing that distance faster, they have less time to shoot at you, and therefore you're not going to be taking as much damage. So you and your team and your shield. On top of that, your shield is going to be taking less damage because it's not up as much. It's only going to be up half the time, which means, again, better shield management. It's going to allow your shield to stay up longer, which is going to allow you to have it more when you need it, right? And then on top of that, like it'll rotate the damage between the shield and like you and your team, which since it's just a tiny little bit of spam damage leaking through, it probably won't be enough to kill anyone, so you should be fine and it can just be healed up. So for the most part, you want to make sure that you're shield hopping when you're trying to close large gaps of area. Anytime you're trying to push in fast or back out fast, right? You can also do this backwards if you're trying to leave. Now, if anybody on your team, like if like one of the pre-told options are happening, so like let's say you're one or you're super low or your team is super low, then you can hard shield, right? Or let's say your ults or abilities are coming in, then you can hard shield, right? But other than that, we just want to shield hop in and out, right? Close those distances faster, and then I think that is most of the stuff, right? Just a lot of just misuse of a shield, and then therefore we don't have it a lot of times when we need it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think I get into a habit of just feeling like I have to hard shield
Yep.
the squishies on our team, even when they're like full HP. Just it's my job to keep them alive and
Yep. And
fix it.
if we're playing like that, we might as well be like on Orisa or Sigma, right? Who those characters who can shield while also damaging and using abilities and whatnot. Whereas Reinhardt can't do that. He's either shielding or doing things, right? And that means it's gonna be a lot less efficient. So we're like here somewhere, I think, here-ish, right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I think I'm just about to die.
Want to make sure we're getting aggressive when we have shield and we have health, right? Here it just seems like like we rewatch this beginning of the fight, right? They're pushing in, right? And we're just kind of sitting here shielding, but we don't ever push. We don't get aggressive here. We just kind of kite and we back a little bit and we back a little bit, right? We're not going in and swinging on things. We're not brawling. We're not doing our thing on Reinhardt. And that's not really how we want to be playing, right? On Reinhardt, we want to be getting aggressive. We want to be swinging because Reinhardt's a brawl character. He likes to be in close and he wants to go fast. When we play slow and when we play far away from people, we're playing to the disadvantage of our character. Here we just kind of back up and don't do anything, and then therefore our character's just not doing anything. We're losing. We're not having an impact, right? And then we basically lose the fight by the time we have any chance to do anything, and we essentially that entire fight we did nothing, right? Just because we kept backing up and backing up and backing up and never pushed and never pushed. Make sure that we're getting aggressive and going in when we have health and we have shields, and we're backing up when we don't have health and we don't have shields, and when we have it at disadvantages versus advantages, right? So all those things kind of go into that.
Mm-hmm. So you say even like that, it's better just to push, even if I decide to make an aggressive play, go forwards and push, and die if I don't get the support. Let's say if the rest of the team doesn't come, that's a better decision.
If your entire team doesn't come, well, of course you don't want to go in and feed and die, right? That's the alternative. So when we're talking about this right here, we're talking about a spectrum, right? So awareness and aggression kind of pair hand in hand. So we'll put those two together as a category, right? Awareness / aggression. We're talking about a spectrum here. At 0% is passiveness, at 100% is aggression, right? Just pure aggression, and then right in the middle is 50%, and that's usually where you're going to want to sit most of the time. There's basically what we're talking about right now is that there's more often than not at the moment we're playing too passive to where we're basically at like 35%ish or 40%ish when we probably want to tone it up just a little bit to 50% for the most part on average. And that's not to say that I want you to all of a sudden go to 80% and then run in and die, but I want you to just tone it up a little bit. Now, there are situations where you do tone it up. Like, so let's say, for example, when we can just take the really easy examples of kill feed, right? When you are up 1 to 2 people, that's taking your aggression and taking it from a 50 and bumping up to 60 or 70, right? When you're up 2 to 3 people, that's where you bump it up from it to an 80, 90, 100, right? When
Cool,
you are down 1 to 2 people, that's taking it from 50 and bumping it down to 40, 30. And then when you're down 2 to 3 people, that's bumping it down to 20, 10, 0, right? And that's roughly how aggression works. And it's just in that last fight, we probably should have been up like 50, 60-ish% just at the very beginning. Like at the very beginning of the fight, we have no reason to not be going in and swinging and doing things, right? So therefore we should have been doing it. But yet we were kind of like in that fight, the entire fight, basically we were sitting around like a, like a 20%, like a 10%, right? Like we just didn't do anything. We were just backing up the whole time. So we definitely should have been up there at 50. I don't want you to run in and die and be at a 100. That's the opposite of what I'm saying here. It's just that I want you to go up a little bit more, right? So in that last fight, we should have been more aggressive. Now, if your entire team is not with you, then that is a thing that impacts your aggression, right? If your team's not with you and is not going to go in with you, then that means that you might not be able to play as aggressive, right? That's another disadvantage, right? It means that you don't have an advantage with you. If your whole team's with you, then that's an advantage. You have a reason to you have basically backup that you can push in with, right? So it's just again, that's another thing that you kind of gauge, and you go off of.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry, G, can I just jump in a second?
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
I got just a quick question on like just general Reinhardt play. Like I played Reinhardt a little bit myself, especially like I'm probably a gold Reinhardt as well. I think there's like a fear with dropping your shield at gold, where because people don't have target priority, they just hard attack the Reinhardt every single fight. So if you're like missing a Mercy or missing your Anna, whatever, like when you go into those fights, you have this fear that you drop your shield and you just get melted straight away. And I've seen it like happen a load of times in our fights where Greg will go, I've just dropped my shield to like start swinging, and I've got a bubble that went, and then I died straight away. And it's like, if you feel like you go, do you agree with that?
So, a couple different things there, right, to unpack. So, first off, things that will allow you to hopefully combat that are, first off, being using cover properly, right? Cover usage is going to be a massive thing in taking less damage, right? When you're using cover properly and not being out in the open and swinging on, like using corners and playing on corners and whatnot, that's going to drastically increase your lifespan. The other thing could be, knowing when to swing, right? Sometimes, for example, like if you're melting instantaneously, that might be a situation where it might have been better to shield because you're taking abilities or ultimates or a ton of spam damage. So that would be those categories where we might say those are the categories in which we would say that's probably where you should be shielding. There's also paying attention to your health bar where you want to make so like if we're getting melted, that could be because we're not paying attention to our health bar, and then therefore we don't shield when we're taking a bunch of damage. Now there are going to be the off cases where we just get literally we drop our shield for half a second and we get blown up in 0.5 seconds, and there really wasn't much we could do. That's not going to happen all the time, every time. And if it is happening all the time, every time, then there's other underlying cases, right? There are some cases where it will happen to you, there's nothing you can do, which is going to happen in your games. When it comes to deaths, right, like 80%-ish of your deaths, you're going to be able to fix, do something about, you're going to be able to improve upon. But then that other 20%, there's not much you can do, right? There's like those situations where you just get grab dragoned, or you just get solo ulted, or you're just, you get headshot and you were in good positioning and it was just a really skillful shot, right? Like there's those situations where there's not much you could have done, and those are the that's kind of that situation where like if you get instantly melted, that's not something that should be happening all the time. And if it does happen all the time, then that's because you're not using using those other things correctly. You're not using cover properly. You're not using your shield properly. You're not paying attention to the situation. If we see that there's 6 people looking at us and they're using abilities and ultimates and all shooting at us, then there might be a situation where we might not want to be playing as aggressive. If we don't have backup to do it, right? So does that kind of make sense to answer that question?
Yeah, I think G and I have had this conversation a couple of times where I've said, I've got bubbles up, go aggressive, and he's gone in, and then it's like kind of, it's all fallen apart straight away, and we've gone like, like what can we do in that situation? But
Yeah.
you're right, it's a multitude of factors, and there are some that we can't do anything about, but there are a lot that we can.
Yeah, so because of those factors, like I'd have to see like a situation in our gameplay here, like where I could say, okay, well this is here you could have done something, here you couldn't have done something. So that's kind of like where I'd have to see the gameplay to like kind of analyze those situations.
When we get to
yep.
it, when we get to it, the attack phase, right at the beginning, there's a good example of that. And that's quite a good one to talk it through.
Yeah,
I
think that's really if we get around to it, because the first phase is quite long, isn't it, compared to the second phase?
All right.
Yeah, I think it's right under the first choke, so we'll probably get there. But yeah, anyway.
Cool. Right. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
That's fine.
no, that's good. Fine.
So yep, we'll just maybe we'll just right at the end there we'll skip over to it if we want to cover that before it ends. Okay, so again, notice we're just kind of peeking the corner with just our shield up for, unnecessarily, and then we just take 600 damage on it before the fight even begins, whereas what we could be doing is just, sitting on the corner, waiting to, like, either running into them, or just waiting for them to walk into us, and then just, like, kind of swinging on this corner, right, without just using it as cover and not taking any damage. Here we have a Shatter, so we should probably, like, in my mind, I'm playing around their Shatter, right? They don't have a single shield on their team, so we have a free Shatter to go off of if we're trying to here, and we can just get a really, really easy Shatter. So we land one single shot, or we wait 1 extra second, and we can just, like, turn this corner, just go boom, 5-man, 6-man Shatter, right? Easy, easy to go for. That is kind of like the play in which we should be going for here. Probably unnecessarily shielding there. Make sure we're regenerating it. Just there's times where we need it, times where we don't. At the moment, we don't need it, and then we keep putting it up, and then therefore it's sitting at like 477, right? See here again, like just notice how we flash it up there at 60 or 600, right? And then we flash it up again, right? And we're not shielding anything in particular, and then therefore it's just not regenerating, right? And then now we don't have any shields. Here we should probably be looking for a Shatter. That is one massive Shatter in front of us if we go for it, right? Let's see if we use it, right? Just pretty big in front of us. We can go for 3 on the right, or I think they might be a little bit split there, so I'm not sure if we'd actually hit everyone. We might hit like maybe if we like back up a hair, we might be able to like actually hit them. Like sometimes keep that in mind. It's a cone, so it's gonna spread outwards. So if you need to, if you feel like it's not gonna hit some of the people on the side, just back up a little bit. Here. Okay, so we do go for the Shatter, though it's slightly delayed, and then by the time we go for it, Lucy gets around the corner, Mercy and Hog go over here, so it's just a slightly delayed Shatter, reacted slightly late to it, and then therefore it doesn't do as much. We did get 2 kills out of it, and that was good. That was a good situation to go for the charge, so that was good. Rewatch this real quick. It seems like we probably could have pushed the Lucio in there, but it seems as though we didn't notice that he was there.
I don't think I saw him. Yeah.
Yeah. So just.
Here I was trying to figure out which door they were going to come out of.
Okay. That's a fine situation to shield, right? We're blocking a bunch of damage and abilities. All right, so these are fine. I'll mention when shielding is probably useless. I'll just like bring them up, and then that way we can kind of get a feel for it. Probably want to be pushing aggressively, like just again paying attention to kill feed right there. Here we're up a bunch of people, and the Hog's 1 HP. Yet we kind of like backed up away from him, which just like lets him escape and get out. Or sorry, he died. Right, we almost let him escape and get out. Kind of stared at that, right?
Yeah. I think I was expecting Fire Charge to be Fire Strike. Fire Strike,
yeah.
Charge. Just sat there doing nothing.
Yeah, so it's just when the button doesn't do anything, just glance down at the ability usage, so we're not staring here for like 3 seconds. Go and swing on that shield, do something, right? We just want to be not AFKing. Or AFCing, I guess would be the acronym for controller. Push that Twerp. Yep, go for him. Good. Alright. Are we shielding anything in particular here? Right, so this is where we just drop it, get an extra 6 on, get our shield regenerating. This probably in between that fight, after we got the Torb going, this would be a good time to be, rotating the high ground, or I mean like even before the Torb, right? Let's see, like back here after we won the fight, it'd just be a good spot. So like here we get, that we get him back out. we back up after we get here out of mech. This would just be like right now. This is where we'd be rotating up the high ground. Then we see the Torbjorn, and then we push forwards. So that kind of like pulls us away, right? Which is good though, because we got a kill. And then we just kind of sit around where maybe we could be rotating up to high ground during this time, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah, exactly that. Be a bit more assertive.
My servants never die.
Yep, I like that charge. That's a decent charge. They're not really noticing you from behind. Um, 7 minutes and 30 seconds. All right. So on a Reinhardt there, I'm not noticing us doing this. So why don't we talk about it real quick? Couple different things on Ryan, right? Charge out of spawn, techie thing. We're just gonna go over some techie stuff. With your fire strike here, your fire strike has an activation timer on it, so you can actually do it like press it before you actually turn the corner, and this is gonna actually allow you to go for fire strikes like without taking much damage, or just if you're trying to do a quick tiny little peek with a fire strike, you can just go real quick. On from there, your hammer when you're swinging, right? We just find the distance of this. Sorry, real quick, just doing this. So, your hammer has more range on the side than it does on the front. So, when we're just swinging on them normally here, maybe can't hit them, but we look to the side a little bit, and stop. Oh yeah, there we go. Right, you can actually see that we can hit them. That's because your hammer has more swing on the side, and then on top of that, just like that you might think, well, what are we gonna walk around just aiming like this? Well, we'll just talk about how a really easy way to apply that while also doing something else at the exact same time. So the other thing that you fix while you're doing this tech is, if we're just staring at the person we're swinging at, we're hitting one person there. If we look left while we're swinging, we can hit 2 people at the same time, right? So we want to make sure we're swinging our camera around and not just staring at the thing we're swinging at. And this at the same time is going to allow you to hit more people, but then also going to be allowing you to get your max range because you're kind of hitting that sweet side angle spot. So how you want to be going for this is going about this is you're going to basically swing in the direction in which your hammer's going. So when you go left, you're going left. When you go right, you're going right, right? You're just going with your hammer, side, 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 and then this is going to be how you're swinging your camera, and that's going to allow you to do the most damage to a big group of people, and that's what you call kind of cleave damage. So here, like these guys, for example, we can hit both of these guys at the exact same time, like even though they're in complete opposite directions from us, right? It's like we can complete 180 on them, yet we can still do that damage to both of them just because you can hit, hit that swing around damage, right? Which just means that you're gonna be doing a whole lot more to groups of people, which wasn't something that we were doing when we were in a big clump of a group of people in that last fight.
Yeah, that's good.
So on top of that might mean that you possibly might want to up your sensitivity slightly. I'm not sure like how much you have of that, but it seems like it might be pretty slow, which might mean that you might want to up that so you're able to actually go about doing that, right? Now real quick, let's do we're approaching the endish, so we have 9 minutes. We're ending at 5:09, and then we have. Sorry, I'm just doing quick math in my head here. Then we have that's 23 minutes left here, and then I also want to give time at the end for kind of going over the main points with both of you guys and the review and kind of doing a quick review. So helium, let's just kind of go to that attack phase so we can particularly go over that thing you want to talk about. Do you think you remember, was it the first fight?
Yeah, I think it was. It was our first push underneath this choke. So we get up to the choke.
Okay, so first off, okay, so this shielding's fine, right? We're taking up soaking up some spam damage. We want to be recharging our shield though. Yeah, this is fine. We get a pick, so we can afford to play a little bit more aggressively. Right? So we get the bubble, we can get a more aggressive. No, okay, so we just kind of chilled there. Okay, so there we just kind of had the same thing as last time happened. Was like here we had advantages, yet we didn't push off the advantages. So rewatch this, right? We're pushing in here and we get a pick, right? The initial pick, we're up 1, right? Advantage, right? Also on top of that, currently they're not holding the choke. They're making the exact same mistake as you guys were, and they're rotating late, which means that if we're already here, what we can do is we can just push past real quick, meet them up here, and then now we're not stuck in the choke, right? So we probably don't want to be just sitting back there at the choke. We probably want to be pushing up here and taking and meeting them so that we're not having to sit there in the choke point, right? Yeah, we kind of sit here and then we shield, and then we shield and we just kind of sit and then we get a bubble and we just kind of and then they got the because we're not being aggressive, they actually get the res off, which puts them now at an even, and we get the bubble and we kind of still sit here, still shield, right? We're just taking a bunch of soak up damage where we're just sitting here and shielding, and now we're at a disadvantage. We're down 1 and we have half a shield, right? So okay, maybe that wasn't the fight that you were thinking of.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Next one.
Yeah, we're back up in the next push. Oh no, that was a good example still.
Okay, so here maybe it's the turrets that we're gonna have to worry about. So here, yeah, we get a bubble. We again make sure you guys are kind of. This is probably one of the biggest things you guys can do as a team. And you were asking me at the very beginning, like, what could we do better to kind of work together more. It's seeming like a lot of these bubbles are happening when you're backing up, right? Or alternatively, you're not pushing forwards when we're getting bubbled. So you need to figure that out and work together on this. Do we make sure you're on the same page of when you're trying to go in and on the same page of when you're trying to get out? One way that a lot of players will do this is they'll have the Reinhardt call for their bubbles. So, for example, like Helium would say, "Give me a bubble," right? Bubble, 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 right? He'd say when he wants his bubble. That way, if he wants to go in aggressively, you can bubble him at the right time. And if he's backing up, you're not bubbling him while he's backing up. Because so far, a lot of these bubbles are happening when he's just kind of sitting there. He's just kind of chilling, right? And Helium on top of that, just maybe get aggressive when you have the bubble, because that bubble is going to allow you to swing for free, right? That's a time where you're not going to be taking any damage, so you get to swing, you get to go in and do things. You get to when you drop your shield, that's going to allow him to get more energy. Whereas both times you just kind of stayed holding our shields, and that's going to mean that he's not getting nearly as much energy out of that, right? So we want to make sure we're coordinating those a little bit better. Here we do try to push forwards. All right, so maybe that's the instance in which we're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is an opportunity to get aggressive, and I think I'm full H.
So this opportunity is like an okay. I probably say we have two disadvantages where we wouldn't want to be getting aggressive. First off, we just used our bubble, so we don't have a bubble available. Though we do have a Valk, right? That Valk is like okay, that's a plus. The other thing is that they have sim turrets, which is something we have to be wary of. As when we get hit by the sim turrets from behind, that's going to mean that we're taking a bunch of extra damage, as well as it's going to be slowing us down, which is going to mean again when you're moving slower, you're taking more damage because they have more time to shoot at you. So that's something we probably want to clear out of the way, and that's something like maybe Dread should be worrying about, for example, and you guys can communicate that within yourselves. So that's the two disadvantages versus the one advantage you have here. Now we do land the Shatter, but the other thing is that we just and we're fine at this point. We just get pinned is the big one, and a couple different things we can do here. First off, we can dodge. The two things you can do against a pin is you can either A, dodge the pin, or B, countercharge him, right? You can the situations where you would basically the only time you would not want to countercharge is if they have if basically they have a bigger team presence than you do, right? If they have more teammates who can shoot at you and help and then help him than you. If he has more team support, then he lives and you die. If you have more team support, then you live and he dies, right? So it's all about the timing. If you know that you're not going to have team that you're going to have less, then you try to dodge it rather than countercharge, because then you're just going to die. Here, you probably have more team support in the moment, or I guess it'd probably say maybe even-ish, because currently 2 of them are shattered, right? This is a situation where 2 of them are shattered. So the only person who's going to be shooting at you is basically just the Lucio and the Torbjorn. Mercy's not going to be shooting at you, right? So it's just going to be Torb and Lucio who are shooting at you. That's it. So therefore, go for the countercharge, right? You're familiar with countercharging, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Sure. So that would just be a situation where countercharging would save us, but because he gets the charge in, now he just took 300 damage, right? And then got stunned, and then we get melted afterwards. So that was the big thing there, was just that we got charged, right? And that was the big one there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one that felt like a good opportunity to push, and then it kind of just blew up.
Yep.
I guess the pin, yeah.
One thing, just as a quick thing, I mean, like, I'll probably say, let me think through this. So, don't feel like you always have to bash your head into the same thing every time. So, for example, here, when we're going through main 3 times in a row, a common definition for the word that's, I probably say it wasn't say is the main definition, but a definition of the word is passed around a lot in Overwatch and is just kind of a side definition. And that is that the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing again and again and again and again and expecting a different result, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to just keep doing the main push 5 times in a row. If it's not working, mix it up. Go left. Probably say left would be the best way. Right side probably wouldn't do much for you. Here you have mainly 2 options: left and main. Right. If main's not working, try left. In fact, left would probably be the better option here. First off, because it's not always expected, especially the lower ranks you go. And then on top of that, look at where turrets are set up. Right. Turrets are more so set up for the choke, and then therefore you'd have to worry less about the Symmetra. And on top of that, there's much that left is just usually gonna be better for you if they're not expecting it, because there's less of a choke here, right? This is such a massive choke that you have to walk through, but over here it's just like this tiny little thing that you can get through pretty fast because you're not having to walk upwards through it, right? You can just kind of walk through it real quick and then boom, you're through it, right? Kind of big difference in the size of the choke point.
Yeah, I like that. Good.
Countercharge him again there. That's a situation where you most certainly have more team support than he does, right? Like, rewatch that real quick, right? He charges through, like, right here. If you pin him right here, look how many teammates of yours can see him. Ashe can see him. Junk can almost see him. Zarya can see him. How many teammates can see you? You're behind the cart here, right? No one there can see you, right? No, literally no one on their team can see you. So countercharging him basically kills him, right? And in fact, he's like also like pretty low HP, so that's another thing, right? That's also gonna stop him from landing any pins on anybody else on your team, and that's also a good idea to do that, right? That's also a good play. Countercharging, we just probably want to look to use that more often. Make sure we're not sitting inside of the Torbolt.
Yeah.
Pay attention to your health bar. Torbolt's gonna melt you, so just make sure we're not sitting in it. So that's a good decision to wrap around. But then we see, oh snap, it's everywhere, right? We can't push. That just kind of cut us off. We can't go forwards. If we were full HP, then you can run across real quick. But the issue here is that we're not full HP. We're at 300 HP, right? We're down 250. So here we don't have the health to push across it. Yeah, we kind of try to stand on top of it, and we're also doing a slow walk across, so holding a shield. Whereas alternatively, we've talked about this before. Speed means less damage. The faster we get across this Torbolt means that we're going to be taking less damage overall. So you would either drop your shield or shield top across, right? Want to make sure we're also just not going in when we don't have shields, because then we try to, back up and then we just get shredded, right?
Yeah. Indecision there as well.
So, like, these are all situations where, yes, we are getting shredded, but there's reasons why we're getting shredded, right? And the reasons why we're getting shredded are things that we can prevent and stop, right?
Yeah.
Was that the Reinhardt just charged too, and we don't know he's there. Right. Okay. So now we found them. There we go. All right. So why don't we go through here, and we'll do strengths and weaknesses real quick, and then we'll move on to the end, and we'll do a wrap up for both of you guys. Do quick we'll go over the main points, and then do a quick kind of refresher, right, and then do review, and then finally wrap up the session from there. So I guess strengths and weaknesses. Do we need to go over strengths and weaknesses if we're just gonna go over main points? Why don't we just honestly, let's skip your strengths and weaknesses, because basically strengths and weaknesses and main points are like the same thing. I usually do it like kind of mid of the session, and then at the very end of it. So we'll just kind of skip straight to this then. So for you, Helium, right? This is just the main points of the session. What you want to take away from this. So number one, probably gonna put at your awareness slash aggression. Okay, this is hard because now I'm thinking of shield management. Probably gonna say. What do you say?
Too many weaknesses.
Yeah. So probably I'm gonna put your awareness slash aggression, right? Just knowing when to push, knowing when not to push, right? Knowing and then just paying attention to our surroundings, right? So all the things that go into those categories. First off, let's just start with awareness, right? Paying attention to our health bar. Big one, right? That's gonna tell us when we can play aggressive, when we can't play aggressive. Pay attention to how much shield health you have. It's gonna tell us when we can play aggressive, when we can't, right? Pay attention to where's my team at, where's the enemy team at, right? Like where are players on the map, right? So we're not missing the Reinhardt who is just behind our team, right? That's gonna that's gonna feed into your aggression, right? Pay attention to the kill feed, right? What's happening there when we're just as a quick reminder for you, 1 to 2 is an advantage or a disadvantage. 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. No ults in won or lost fights, and we're looking to go in and get aggressive when we're up, and when we've won a fight, and we're looking to back out and play less, and if we can, and then let them kill us if we can't, right? And when we've lost a fight, we're gonna start off at like kind of 50% aggression, and then we're gonna tone it up when we have advantages, tone it down when we have disadvantages, right? Then on top of that, let's see what else in awareness aggression. Make sure we're going in when we have bubble, right? That was a big one. You guys kind of were very uncoordinated with that. Where like we'd be bubbling in the or at least like he'd be bubbling us, and we would just see it and just back up anyways, right? So we want to make sure we're both on the same page about that, right? And then I think those are all the main ones, right? In that. Number 2 is going to be at your ability usage, right? Make sure we're charging out of spawn, counter charge the enemy Reinhardt. Don't immediately charge into into shatter, right? Unless it is unless it's far away or you're finishing someone off right at the very end of it, right? Fire strike off cooldown, but for the most part, that one was pretty solid. No big issues with that. Just make sure we're doing it often. And then shield management was the biggie, right? Make sure that we are, kind of managing that correctly. Don't just hold it down unnecessarily. One moment. Sorry, I'm back. So yep, just make sure that we're not just holding up at the very beginning of a fight unnecessarily, but and not soaking up random spam damage, but instead we're using it when it's necessary. So use it when you're pushing in or backing out. Use it when you're taking a bunch of damage, bunch of spam damage. Use it when you're low or your teammates are low. And finally, use it when you're blocking abilities or ultimates, right? Those are all the times where you're mainly using it. Don't just kind of plop it up for nothing in particular. Make sure when there's nothing in particular happening that we're putting our shield down and we're letting it recharge and we're not kind of randomly flashing it. Make sure we're shield hopping when we're going in or backing up fast. That's going to preserve our shield and keep it alive longer. And then those are all the big main ones, I believe. Then moving on, number 3 is going to be probably our positioning, right? Making sure we're taking advantage of choke points, that we're trying to, push through it as fast as possible, right? It's a disadvantage for us, so we're trying to go through it, not sit inside of it, and also just making sure we're actually holding it. We're on defense. Make sure we're using cover properly, right? We talked about that with Dread, but I think it also applied to you once in a while. Not it wasn't terrible, right? But we still want to make sure we're using cover and we're using it. We're sitting on those corners, right? Not out in the open, because that's also going to do multiple other things on Reinhardt that that it encourages your team to use the cover too, because you as a Reinhardt kind of dictate where your team's standing a lot of the time. So that means that you're going to be able to help them in your cover. It's going to mean that if your shield goes down, you can use cover. And also when you place your shield around the corner, it means that they're only going to be able to shoot at half of it, and therefore that's another thing you can do to manage your shield health. Is if you're just shielding something in particular, you can keep it on a corner, and then now it's going to be taking less damage because it can't shoot at all of it, right?
Sure, yeah.
And then finally, the last one, and then also taking high grounds too, right? Rotate in between fights, take the best positioning possible. And then finally, shatter usage, make sure we're not holding on to it. Make sure you're using it at the very beginning of fights. And then make sure that we are backing up if we're trying to get people in it. But honestly, it wasn't too terrible, right? We were slightly delayed with some of them, but it wasn't the worst, right? It's pretty solid. And then Reinhardt doesn't have mechanics, so we don't have to worry about that. All right. Any questions about anything we talked about?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. I think some good things to focus on.
All right. So then we'll move on over to Dread. Just do a quick, main points remind and then review, right? Main points number 1. Let's see. Like we talked about with you, you're a lot more kind of everything needed work. But it was like kind of everything was in the middle, right?
Yeah.
You know, not everything was terrible. Everything was decent. It's just that everything also wasn't really good, right? So, we want to make sure. Let's see. What would we put in number 1? So bubbles versus grabs. I'd probably say bubbles weighed in slightly more than grab usage. Then I'd probably say that I'm just trying to think through this in my head, and then I'd probably say that they probably weighed in more than mechanics. And then positioning and awareness. Positioning we didn't talk a ton about, right? We didn't talk about a ton about positioning and awareness. Okay, so why don't we put bubble usage at number 1? Right, make sure we're using it, we're getting good value out of it. That's going to allow us to do a ton, right? Bubbles kind of is a very important ability on Zarya, right? Bubbles are going to allow you to do more damage, therefore get more ults and get more kills, and when you get more ults and get more kills, you're getting even more kills out of the ultimates, and then you're winning more fights and winning more games as a result. Want to have high energy and also want to be getting tanking. Make sure with our bubbles that we're using them when people are actually taking damage, and we're paying attention to what things can we bubble to kind of get tanking value out of as well, such as like shatters and grabs and hooks and charges, right? Bubbling people when they need it. Make sure that we're bubbling when Dread is actually pushing in, not when he's just kind of chilling in place, and we're trying to coordinate that with him. That's also going to apply like any other Reinhardt you're playing with, right?
Yeah, that's. I think that's an interesting one. That because I think you've probably already noticed it already, but Helium is a little bit quieter than I am. So I try and shot call from the Zarya. So I will. If you see a lot of those bubbles that go in, it's me saying go aggressive now, go aggressive now, kind of thing, rather than the other way around.
Yeah, which that's perfectly fine. If that's the case, then just Helium, make sure you're listening to him, and then also on top of that, give him like slightly more of a head start, or like rather than just saying bubble, go go go, because bubble only lasts 2 seconds. So what you'd want to do is say, okay, I'm gonna bubble you, start pushing, and then once he does push, then you bubble him, right? So you just like. Or you can give him a countdown to like 3, 2, go push, go in 3, 2, 1, right, and then you can bubble him, right? Just like give him a little bit more of a warning so the bubbles aren't happening, and then he's like, oh snap, right, and I need to push.
Yeah.
Make sure we're just getting value out of those because they're only good half the time. I think we did good on the quantity. Just make sure we're looking for quality too, because if we don't get good quality bubbles, then that just means that we're getting a lot of meh bubbles, right? Which isn't going to be the best. We want to go for both quantity and quality. Moving on to our probably, let's say, let's put that at ultimate usage for now, number 2. Honestly, I'm going to have to talk through these, and then maybe I might adjust them as we go, just because I need to give myself a reminder as we go, because it's like 40 minutes ago that we didn't. We talked about your stuff. So ultimate usage, make sure that we are not ulting in won or lost fights. Make sure that we are actually using it, on top. Like we're not holding on to it, right, for fights, but we're also looking to use it in the beginning of fights, not mid or late fights, which we did a couple times, right? Beginning inherently, ults that are used first get more value than ults that are used second, most generally, and then on top of that, it can help you, not accidentally just hold on to it. Up against a diva, look, you have a bunch of different ways you can look to avoid her. Just don't just not use your ultimate, right? We can wait till she's dead, wait till she's out of position, wait till she's too far away from you, wait till she's out of mech. You can purposely try to get her out of mech. You can do it, do a close grab where you do it up against a wall or on the ground. Do it around the corner, right where she can't see you. Be sneaky about it. Wait till she's turned around. Right, a bunch of different ways that we can do it. Wait till just till she's used her defense matrix, right? And then it's on a cooldown. And then I think, was that it? I think that was mainly it, right? And then moving on to number 3, let's put at our Mechanics, lots of different things. Target priority, make sure we're shooting at the right things, right? We're shooting at DPS and supports, not tanks. When it's an option, we only shoot at tanks when they're low, out of position, or the only things we can shoot at. Other than that, make sure we're left clicking with it when we're within left click range, right? Outside of it, inside of it, outside of it, inside of it, right? You can hear when you're doing damage. You can see their health bar go down. You can also see the hit marker, which is the white marks, like when you're shooting, right? Whereas when you go too far away, you don't see those. Make sure we're getting the right range down. When we're within that, we're using left click. When we're without that, we're using right click. We can also use right click to burst them down. So when they're around like that much HP, so it looks like they have to be like 3 bars left. So right there, right? So now you're gonna be able to kill them, which I believe is like I don't know if I remember. It's roughly like 70-ish type, but it's also gonna be, you can do that when they're higher HP when you have more energy, right?
Sure.
So make sure we're doing that. Then we just tossed a lot of right clicks in when we were too close, and then we also some of our right clicks just ended up being whiffing. General left click tracking was good, and then I think that was pretty much it there. And then moving on to positioning and awareness. So I think then came positioning, making sure that we are, using cover properly, and we are taking high grounds, and we're using, corners and cover and whatnot. And then that's pretty much it. And then finally is awareness, mainly just paying attention to, I think you said you're fine usually in kill feed, but just make sure still paying attention to that. And then also the big one is just paying attention to the flow of the fight, right, with all the other things that go into it. So which team has more health, which team's using ultimates, and which teams has more abilities, which team has closer spawns, which team has, just all the advantages, better positioning, right? And then that's going to dictate your aggression as well, right? And then that was pretty much it. So do you, either of you guys just have any last questions?
No, nothing from me. Thanks for good luck with the YouTube channel as well. I've watched a bit of your content, and it's pretty good as well. So good luck with that.
Oh, thank you very much. Was that before or after you ordered?
It was after. I
sorry.
thought. I think Greg actually typed it in and found it anyway, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, we can just cancel our order and just watch this instead."
Yeah, I was looking for someone twitching, and I came across one. I was like, "I swear this is the same dude."
Yep. All right. Well, that's pretty funny.
One last question, really quick one. Sorry, because I know we're actually on time.
Yeah, man.
On the ult usage, and there's both of us, we tend to build our ults kind of at the same time, and obviously 2 big tank ults. Sometimes we're kind of spanking them together.
Yeah.
Is there a general rule, like, should we be trying, like, definitely to avoid doing that, like, using one per fight only?
It depends on the situation. Like it depends on, like, are you already at an advantage, or are you neutral, or are you at a disadvantage? It's also gonna depend, like, do you have other teammates who have ultimates? Like, if you have 6 ultimates, right? What happens if you use 6 ultimates in one fight?
You definitely win it every time, and then you lose the next fight.
Exactly, right? You're just gonna lose the next fight, so that would be over ulting. And if your team has a bunch of ults at the same time, then you might want to, like, just say, like, okay, I'm gonna use my ult, you hold on to yours, so that way we're not using everything, right? And then besides that, like, there's usually not too big of an issue using both your ults in a single fight, as long as it's, like, within the parameters that we've already set in place of ultimate usage. Just, making sure we're not using it when it's already won or lost, and we're not over ulting, right? Usually it's gonna be fine. Though, just as a quick other kind of combo thing for you guys, like, just to kind of goes together, is usually you're going to want to shatter first, because you can charge your shatter off of the grab very easily. Like, Reinhardt can just swing into it and get a bunch of ult charge, and then therefore he charges his shatter back up. Whereas if you grab first, he's not going to get any of that ult charge through because he still has the shatter, which, so that's just a timing thing, is just use the shatter first. And then that also, on top of that, shatter is kind of like a hit or miss thing. Like, it's probably much more inaccurate or not inaccurate, like unpredictable than grab is, right? Exactly, it's easier to whiff, so that means that, like, you might win off of the shatter and they might not even need the grab, but if you grab first, it's hard, like, it kind of goes that way, right? So you might want to just use shatter first to see if you're going to win off of it. All right.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
No, none from me.
Yeah, nothing for me. I guess what we'll do is, like, obviously